Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge. Let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the awesome Charles Chudabala. How you doing today, man?
Good, man. Great. You said my name right. That's awesome.
A little stutter, but we'll get there. For those of you that don't know, Charles is a published author. He was part of the book My First Horror Movie, Scream Warriors, which was put together by Christian Ackerman. You guys know him. You just seen him a couple videos ago. Congratulations on that, man. That's so cool. I can't wait to read these. I'm so stoked on it.
Yeah. It was so great to be a part of that book, and just being in the presence of all those people and all those authors, and when Christian asked me to come on board for that book, and you have the book now, right? Yeah.
I ordered it. I will have it.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And then you are in a universe that every horror fan would be so proud to be in the Blumhouse universe. The Gallows Act 2, a theatrical release. You were a part of that, man. How was that, being a part of that?
Dude, that was trippy. Okay, so number one, that was also my dream. I'm a horror fan, obviously. And yeah, that was literally on my bucket list. Like, one day I'm going to be in a Blumhouse film. It was actually the film Oculus that really turned me on to Blumhouse. It's like, that obscure film that like not a lot of people talk about, but that was my obsession. I've seen Oculus so many times. And when that came out, I was like, how the hell did they do this? And number one, do a brother-sister story, which, is not usually the antagonist. And I just love that dynamic. Yeah. And literally move the entire thing on the budget that they had with just the performances alone. That movie was just so trippy, but also psychological. And
very smart film.
So smart.
I love watching how things play out in that movie, from the mother thinking that the dad's having an affair, because of everything that's happening. And, you never know, like with the brother and sister, when you get to the end of the second, beginning of the third act, you never know if they are where they think they are. They think they're outside, but are they outside? Or is this the mirror playing tricks on them? Like, it was fucking brilliant. Like, and the way it ended with the sister in the way, like, dude, it was just genius. And it was like so poetic almost that he spent his whole life trying to forget what had happened, only to come back and have his life affected that hard by the mirror again. Brilliant movie, man. I'm glad you brought that up. I haven't got to talk about that on the show yet. I also haven't got to talk about the movie we're going to talk about yet, but we're not quite there yet because I still got some cool things about you I want to talk about. Ugly Sweater. Sweater Party with Sean Whalen, Roach from People Under the Stairs, as well as Felissa Rose. That's all I got to say is Felissa Rose. You all know that beautiful woman. You were a part of that. How was that?
Oh, that was so much fun. Aaron Mento directed Ugly Sweater Party, and he and I had worked on a choose your own adventure horror series for Crypt TV when it was first starting out, where you literally get to decide how the killer kills its victims. But awesome. If you want him to use a machete, click this. If you want to be, so that's how we had met. And he pulled me on to Ugly Sweater Party, and pulled me on as a producer, which I also starred in. So that was awesome because we got to assemble the cast together and reach out to people that we wanted to work with. And Felissa Rose was already high on the list, and then of course Sean Whalen. These are just great people. These are icons in the horror world. And so these are people that I had worked with or had in the industry in passing, but it was Ugly Sweater Party that literally established a friendship because we were now literally working together on one of my projects, and we are friends to this day. The most amazing people. And also we got to bring Felissa Rose back to camp. Ugly Sweater Party takes place on a camp. We literally shot it at elevations of 8,000 feet. We had access to this entire abandoned campground, and we literally had a summer camp, sleeping there, bringing it was amazing. And the film itself, if you haven't seen it, it's an ugly Christmas sweater that is possessed by a serial killer from a decade ago, possessed by Sean Whalen, by the way, who is then, coming back to kind of destroy Christmas. And I put the ugly sweater on, and I'm on my way to try.
Is there a platform that this is streaming on that people can watch it?
It was streaming on Amazon Prime for a little bit, but it might be coming back again for Christmas time. We're having some talks right now. We might be putting it back on Prime again, but you can definitely get the Blu-ray, the special Blu-ray. We did a signing for that that you can get on, I think, the Ocular Migraine Shopify.com. I can leave you the website as well.
Please, I'll put it down here in the description.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of his information down here. Make sure you're following his social media. We got some other cool things down here in the description. Make sure you're following. This guy works his ass off. It's so fun to be able to talk to him about this. Now let's talk about him being kind of a douchebag. Let's talk about Dr. Sanders here a little bit. This is Irrational Fear, which is something that you're a hated villain in this movie, which does show your range as an actor. You're not a one-trick pony. And seeing you as such an evil, disturbing person that so many people hate, it really shows the different range that you have. So what's it like, Dr. Sanders? I believe you use the term, it's the gift that keeps on giving. So Irrational Fear, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, thank you for saying I've got range. I appreciate that. That's a great compliment coming from you. And Irrational Fear, the gift that keeps on giving. We shot this film in Wisconsin. Probably, I want to say back in 2017, the summer of 2017. And I actually have a counseling background. Before jumping into horror, I was a marriage and family therapist and psychologist, child psychologist, therapist. So when I auditioned for this role, and Dr. Sanders is a therapist, and he brings these people to a special retreat to help them conquer their fears, that was definitely something that I could relate to, was the group therapy process. I used to run my own groups, and and we shot this film, to make a movie with friends, as we do in the indie horror world. It's like, look, what are you guys doing this summer? Let's make a movie together. And it was Slasher Studios, which is on the East Coast, or Wisconsin. And then, of course, my buddy Hunter Johnson, who also stars in Ugly Sweater Party with me. He's a director. They joined forces. I landed the role. I got there, and then it was a film that we made. It kind of got out there, but then it was out. But then suddenly a couple years later, Terror Films, our distributor, came along, and they were interested in the film. And since they released it on a wider scale, it has been finding an audience like no other. Like it premiered on Kings of Horror, which is a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, and the response was insane. People were watching the movie not once but twice but 3 times. They couldn't figure out if they liked the movie or not, but they needed to watch it again. Even if people were polarized by the film, wanted to watch it again because they wanted answers. They couldn't believe how over the top the movie was at times, but then at the same time it was kind of punching you in the gut with some emotion and vulnerability. And then, with iTunes and Tubi, and it just keeps on finding a life. We are getting letters, or DMs, I should say letters, right? Fan mail. I get DMs almost every week from somebody saying that you're my new horror, favorite horror villain. Or I hated you in Irrational Fear, but man, I love you in Irrational Fear. Right. So it's definitely a pride of mine to be able to say that I was somebody's favorite or second favorite horror villain that they've now discovered through Irrational Fear.
Well, not just that, but like you were saying, if somebody hates you in a movie, you did your fucking job right.
Yes! Thank you! Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what, and I try to explain that to people because you're a great guy. The conversations we've had through email and, just talking before we did this, you're a great dude. I love talking to you. You're so fun to be around. But, for you to be able to take that, but then manifest it into this pure evil to where people watch it and they're like, man, fuck that guy. We were talking about Sean Whalen, the dad from People Under the Stairs. That's him to me, because that and Silver Bullet, I hated that guy growing up. That guy haunted my nightmares, man. So for you to be able to be up on that pedestal with those people of the villain that people hate, even if you look at The Walking Dead, the governor, everybody hated that dude. But David Morrissey killed it. That's why you take the role so serious and you put your heart and soul into it, and people feel that. That's why they feel that hatred for you, because you're evil personified, which is not you in any stretch. So congratulations on that, man. That's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment. And I did take a lot of pride in that role. The director, Hunter Johnson, who directed the film, he had an ulterior motive for Dr. Sanders that I didn't know about until he revealed it later, which was, it was Angela from Sleepaway Camp 2, the second one. And he... Okay. Yes, and he wanted like that was like the subtext for Dr. Sanders. It was kind of like this happy-go-lucky, but had this little kink. But and I think what I brought to it was I felt like he genuinely cared.
Yeah.
Like, somewhere in his soul, he's like really wants to help people. At the end of the day, but it's like like you love your pet so hard that you squeeze it and then until it kind of. Yeah. That's kind of a little bit of what was going on there. Yeah.
So before we get into your first horror movie, there's something that we both would like to talk about. You have an upcoming project that is pretty exciting. What can you tell us about this?
Yes. Okay. So The Central Authority. It is wrapped. This is a film that we shot as soon as the pandemic hit. As soon as the announcement was made that we had to shut down America, or we had to start shutting things down. This was back in March, like that weekend of like March 13th. I was contacted by the amazing Kristen West, who helmed the film. This is her brainchild, and she wanted to talk to me about this project. She goes, "Hey, look. Let's make a movie right now. I would love to meet with you." She and I have been wanting to work together for years, and then it finally happened. She introduced me to her producing partner, Armin Nassari, who also edited the film, and we discussed kind of what my role would be, the kinds of characters that I had played before, and then she asked me a very specific question of just like, what is there a specific character that you've always wanted to play that you've never gotten a chance to play, or what would be your dream role? And we had a discussion about pushing myself differently as an actor, and she's like, "Well, I've got some things for you." And she literally, it was within a couple of weeks we started shooting. This was a 30-day shoot, I believe. It was I wasn't on for 30 days, but this was this was 40 cast members, all socially distant, done remotely using a variety, of technologies, and all of us only knowing seriously just our parts.
That's
this
awesome.
entire universe that weaves together, that she helmed this thing. Michael Colomb, who is in this movie, he's amazing. So he's another person that I've been wanting to work with forever, and we are now working together in this universe. A lot of people in this film that are like now co-stars of mine that I've never actually met in person: Candice Callens, Marco Parra, Sarah Gaston, the list goes on and on. These are just this wonderful, wonderful people working together on this amazing movie, which is now done. And long story short, or what I should say, this genre is a horror comedy with social satire and just in a dystopian world.
Dude, I'm so stoked. And one thing that I wanted to bring up while we were talking about this, because I looked through the promos that you sent me, dude, I'm so excited for it. But you were talking about how she kind of let you take the reins on your creativity of the film. And I really feel like when a director writer lets you kind of, take the reins on that, you as an actor, I mean, I'm just speaking from what I feel. I've never been blessed enough to do what you guys do, but I just feel like you're going to put your heart and soul into it, just like you did with, Dr. Sanders, because this is part of your, creativity as well. So you're going to push, instead of giving 110%, you're going to give 112, because this is part of your brainchild as well. So that's brilliant on her part. She came up with this thing, but she let you guys have the reins on it as well. So brilliant on her part. I'm so excited to see it. As soon, I'm doing a buddy of mine, Bill, he's going to start doing every Monday SledgeHammer horror updates on past guests, what we're doing right now. So as soon as you know where this is dropping or how we can get, our copies of it, let me know so I can put that up so everybody can get their copy, whether we're streaming. Me personally, I am a physical copy person. So I have already planned on getting Ugly Christmas Party or Ugly Sweater Party so I can do a review for it for the Christmas holiday. So that's something I have to get the Blu-ray so I could, do that. But that's something that I'm very much excited for. And real quick, you brought up something. One other thing I want to talk about before we get into your first horror movie. Michael Colomb, I know I talk about this guy a lot, but for those of you that don't know him, he is one of the kindest, most generous guys in the entire world. And a lot of the people I've been working with lately, I would not have had that opportunity without Michael. So for you guys that are enjoying the show, I put a lot of work into it. A lot of the crew that I have that you don't see, my wife, Bill, who does all my editing, another guy named Michael, actually, which does a lot of my booking as well. Without those guys, these shows wouldn't be happening. So I want to give a big shout out to all the crew that's been helping me. My two Michaels, Colomb and Hanning, my wife and Bill, and you guys that are coming on the show, like you, Charles. This is so cool, man. And I'm so happy to work with you. This is such an exciting thing for me. So now that we are talked about you a little bit, let's talk about where it started for you. The first horror movie you ever watched, and that was
Misery.
Misery. Now, you talk about Oculus being a psychological horror. When you talk about psychological horror, you don't have to look much farther than Misery.
Yes, yes. And it's no wonder I grew up to be, studying the brain, trying to make sense of human behavior, which, I mean, operative word being trying. I mean, I don't think it, like, really even makes sense. We spend our time observing people, we find out that, like, nothing makes sense. We contradict ourselves all of the time. But I was in the second grade. And I write about Misery in my favorite horror movie, Scream Warriors. That's my essay, is on Misery. And I was in the second grade. I remember we rented it from Blockbuster Video, and and every time I would watch it with my family, I'd close my eyes during that scene with the hammer.
Hey, please!
Almost done. Just one more. God, I love you.
Right? All the time. But I was yes, you got your, oh my God.
For those of you that have not seen the film, this is a pretty essential part of it. I think this is the part that we all agree is actually, one of the most terrifying scenes in any Stephen King adaptation. I'm with you. As a kid, I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a downtown video.
No way.
That's what it was called. And so we were always, grabbing movies off the shelves and going home and watching them. And I can't think of a movie that really creeped me out more than this, and you were talking about human psychology and you being in second grade I mean, you're being scared, but I don't think you could really grasp all of what's happening there, and one of the scariest scenes to me, and I want to know what scene affected you the most. I'm assuming I know what it is, but right after she hits him like that and she's just like, oh, I love you, like, that's just like, oh my gosh, that's so dark and scary. Yes, man. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Which scene affected you the most? Was it the board scene?
That definitely stands out. But if I had to think back, there was sheer terror when he got out, actually, and he had to go back to his room because he broke free, right? Technically in that wheelchair, and then is trying to pack some things, the lighter fluid and all those, and then drops the freaking penguin. Okay, yes. So let me tell you something. My brother had a penguin just like that, and it was a ceramic gray penguin. And when he caught it and flipped it the other way, like, I don't know why, that image alone was like, you're not getting out of this, or every mistake could cost you your life. It's just this teetering the line of there is no room for error at all. Like, literally, it has to be so precise. So that visual of that penguin, of him, having to go back to his room, you know what I mean? After a sense of freedom is almost a little bit of that, what do they call it? I was about to say Stonehenge syndrome. Will you identify with your captor? Stockholm. Sorry, Stonehenge. Whoa.
Well, from here, henceforth, shall be known as Stonehenge syndrome.
Yeah, because answers are not going to be revealed today.
Right. Yeah, and you just are frozen like a rock.
You're just frozen.
Stonehenge syndrome. I like that, man. So and another thing about this movie too is this movie is really dependent. You talk about being dependent on actors. Yes. Kathy Bates and James Caan, I don't know if you could have done this movie with two other people because the chemistry they had. Kathy Bates is one of those people that, I didn't see Misery until after I had seen Kathy Bates in other roles. So it's hard for me at that age to take her serious as this terrifying person. Now that I'm older, I really love the execution that she has. She gives you that feeling of, that she's bad, but she really gives you that feeling of, I'm doing this because I love you so much. and you need me. That's why I need to keep you here, which is just like so fucking, it's so great, that delivery of hers, man.
Yeah, which coming full circle to Dr. Sanders is like, I'm only doing this to help you. I want to set you free. I mean, it may cost you your life, but you'll be free.
That was actually my next question. From this movie, do you think that this movie influenced you as an actor?
You know what? Now, because at that age, I wasn't interested in acting. I actually wanted to be a cartoonist, and so, but when you, what I have found, whatever you're doing at any point in your life can be traced to something that might have influenced you, unbeknownst to you. Whatever it is, we're influenced by the things around us. But I definitely, I'd have to say, yeah. It does influence me as an actor. Her performance influenced me as an actor because I was very drawn to a lot of dark projects. And when anybody would ask me what kind of horror I liked, I wanted serious, I like to watch serious horror, the kind that makes you like talk yourself off the ledge, Hereditary, things like that, you know, and those are the roles that I gravitated towards. I wanted to emulate, because it was, you know, with Kathy Bates, it imploded with like the entire spectrum of emotions. I feel like that's just so much more fun to watch. And that's why, I think as an actor, I look at the spectrum of like, how do I see, when do I get to cut my teeth and sink my teeth into something that gets to show a full range of color? But definitely, for sure, Kathy Bates has influenced me as an actor, for sure.
Well, and we were just talking about range. I mean, you go from Misery to The Waterboy's mom, you know, that's range right there, man. Kathy Bates is amazing. Such a great actress. She's somebody that I've always loved. And, you know, like I said, for those of you that haven't seen it, you guys got to check out Irrational Fear. It's on Tubi, right? Correct?
Yeah, you can watch it for free on Tubi. It's on Kings of Horror right now. It's also on Watch Movies. I just discovered it was on Watch Movies YouTube. It's just literally, it is the gift that keeps, it just pops up with life. Every other week, I'm finding out that it's somewhere else. So, yeah.
Kings of Horror, I'll have their link down here as well, the link directly to the video, so you guys can watch it. Watch this guy tear it up, man. But then finish the interview first, so you still like him, and that way you'll come back. But he tears it up in this movie. He's terrifying. So when you guys see it, you're going to know what I'm talking about. So I know I keep going back to that, man. But like I said, I'm a fan, so it's so much fun to talk about that stuff with you. Let me steer the car back here to Misery real quick. When someone starts talking about Misery, what is the first thing that pops into your mind?
Oh, it's the Hammer, number one. Yes, the Hammer. Dom Perignon. Dom Perignon, and for me, and fear that I could survive. So it was like it became a game for me. Okay, as a kid, I was very, very scared. You know, if I would watch Chucky, you know, like going to the bathroom and flushing the toilet, I'd run to my room right after because for some reason flushing the toilet was so scary. I'm like, you know, so, but with Misery, I felt like I would get through more and more of the movie each time. Like I was becoming desensitized and it became like a game. I'm like, okay, now that I watched the hobbling scene, right, with my eyes closed, I'm going to do it with just a little crack, okay? And then the next time I watch the movie, by the way, thank you to my mom and dad for constantly renting the movie, because remember, rentals were only 5 days. Be kind, rewind, and they would rent it again for me because I would request it like any kid would request a Disney movie. It was, for me, it was Misery, and and I would just gradually face my fear like a roller coaster. I'm going to do a little bit more each time. So I feel like that movie made me like braver, and I also I thought it was just so fun to watch. It was a fun movie to me. It was no longer scary. Oh, I'm a full screen now. What happened?
Yep. Sorry about that. I'm back. Another thing I wanted to talk about when we're talking about Misery too, and being in a video store and all those things, is you were just talking about your parents having to re-rent the movie. But when you really, really think about it, because here's where I want to give kudos to your parents. Now, this is just my opinion. I've never done anything with psychology, but I grew up in a video store as well. So something that I've always thought is the people like us that gravitate towards horror at a young age, I don't think that, you know, people, oh, those are serial killers. Actually, I think we're more grounded. And I've talked about this on the podcast before because we gravitate towards horror at such a young age. We understand the difference between fiction and, nonfiction, between, fantasy and reality. And we know these people are gone in this movie, but that's not real because we educate ourselves in the horror genre at a young age. You get desensitized to it. Of course you do, because you're seeing these things. But when we were kids, horror wasn't as like it is today. Jaws, Child's Play, Misery was about as gnarly as it got when you actually watch the practical, brilliant. But I really think growing up that we are lucky that we had those horror movies because they grounded us in reality more, because we took our fiction to the TV. We used our imaginations. We ran it through the TV. We knew, this is fake. It's not okay. But that's just my opinion. I feel like guys like us and all males and females that grew up with horror movies, I feel like we're the more grounded ones. Just my opinion, but
yeah,
I'm the host, so I can talk about whatever I want.
Ken, no, and I love that you said that. That's truth. That's real. And I never thought about it that way. I could talk on and on about why I love horror, and I have a list of the reasons why I'm drawn to horror. Some of them may probably be similar to why you are, and a lot of horror fans are, but I've never thought about that before. That because I've been told this in the past. They didn't put it that way, but they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're like that." Like the happiest, most jolliest, like horror guy. And Charles, why do you do horror movies? You're like so happy, as though the two can't coexist, right?
Right.
No, you can't, because nobody has a shadow side. No, we are, yeah. We're
it's funny because I talk about my love of horror movies too, and then people ask me, well, what's your favorite movie? My favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future. And people are like, well, you love horror movies. I do love horror movies, but I think Back to the Future is a perfect movie. And then I just talked about it, Leslie. Was just on her podcast, and something I talked about was The Notebook for me is in my top 5 favorite movies. I think The Notebook is the perfect love story. It's real. It's not, they meet and they fall in love and they're together forever and everything's perfect. It's the perfect, the turmoil, the fighting, the, separation of war, and it's the perfect movie. So I talk about these things, and I get the same thing as you, like, oh man, you're a horror guy. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, but I'm also a guy. I'm a human being. I have more interests than just horror movies, man. I love horror movies. Don't get me wrong. I'll live and die on that cross. But I absolutely am just a lover of film in general. I just gravitate towards horror more. So now I want to go scream on you here for a second. We talked about your first horror movie. Now I want to know, what's your favorite scary movie, Charles? What is your favorite horror movie?
Black Christmas, 1974.
Oh, nice. I have not had anybody say that yet. What a great choice.
It is. Yeah. I wasn't going to think about it. I'm like, don't think too hard. Just say whatever comes to mind. And that one came to mind because it is, oh my God. Speaking of Scream, I feel like that's the first like slasher of the person on the other line that created the whole and saying the most vulgar things. But the movie itself is so haunting, and the soundtrack of just the billowing, cold, wind throughout the entire film. The stakes are high in that film. There's nowhere to run, and I just it's so raw and real. There's nothing about that film that feels, number one, dated, and watch it. Don't watch the new one, people. Don't watch the new Black Christmas. Watch the original. It's not just a great holiday horror movie or Christmas. It's a great horror film in general. Yeah. It's actually scary. Because
it's in my top 5 most underrated slasher films of all time. Absolutely. And I think a lot of that is a lot of people see the new one and they're like, oh, well, I've seen the new one. I don't have to see the old one because I didn't like the new one. Look, the new one and the old one they share the same name and maybe a couple of the same plot points, but that's about it. The new one goes, and I'm one of those people that'll never say something sucks or I hate something. The new one wasn't for me. It did have a following, and there were people that liked it, but I wasn't one of those people. It just wasn't for me. Someone made art, good for them. I'm happy for them, but that just wasn't an art that I enjoyed. Now the old one from the 70s, that one is just, it's so, and I think that you're right. I think the reason that not a lot of people connect with it is because it's considered a Christmas horror movie. But man, it's such a good horror movie. Like, it's so much fun to watch and such an underrated slasher, man. It's such a good movie. I'm so glad, man. Misery and Black Christmas, man. We need to have a movie night and just a marathon of movies.
Yeah.
I think we have so much fun, man.
Yeah. I mean, and snow and blizzard. I mean, it's like something haunting about that. You know, we don't really get that here in Southern California, but
I'm in Michigan, so I could actually do without the. I'll give you some. So I always end these with the same question. Time-honored tradition here. We're ranking Misery on a scale of 0 to 5 skulls. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. Yes, you can use half skulls. What are you ranking Misery, 0 to 5?
5 skulls.
5 skulls. Brilliant. Man, and again, I want to thank you so much, guys. Make sure you guys are going down here in the description, checking out a lot of the work he does. Brilliant. You're going to be seeing a whole lot of him in the future. He's going to be all over the place once COVID ends, and I'm so proud to be able to call you a friend. Thank you for doing this. Don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, remember, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.